Have you ever just looked at the world around you, a tree, a bird, your own hand, and then looked at something like a rock? What's the real fundamental difference? It's a question we've been asking for centuries. What is the actual secret to life? Well, let's dive in and see if we can unlock it.
Yeah. What is that spark? That essential quality that a living thing has, but an inanimate object just doesn't? The answer is kind of funny. It's both incredibly simple and at the same time profoundly complex. It all comes down to this, the cell. This tiny fundamental unit is the hero of our entire story. It's the basic structural and functional building block of every single living organism on this planet, from the smallest bacterium to the biggest blue whale. But how did we even figure this out? It wasn't some eureka moment from one person. Nope. It was more like a giant scientific detective story pieced together over centuries, clue by curious minds peering through the very first microscopes. So our story kicks off way back in the 1600s. You've got this guy, Antony von Leeuwenhoek, who's the first person to ever see and describe a live cell. He called them animalcules, little animals, squirming around in a drop of pond water. Now, let's fast forward to the 1830s. A botanist, Matthias Schleien, is looking at tons of plants and has this big realization. Wait a minute, all of these are made of cells. Then, just a year later, his colleague Theodor Schwann says the exact same thing about animals. So they put their heads together and propose this radical idea. All living things are made of cells. But there was still one huge question left.
Right. If everything's made of cells, where do new cells come from? Do they just pop into existence? Do they just spontaneously appear out of non-living stuff? The theory from Schleiden and Schwann was brilliant, a total game changer, but it was incomplete. The puzzle was still missing a crucial piece.
And then, in 1855, Rudolf Virchow comes along and puts the whole thing to rest with this elegant, powerful phrase, omnis cellula est cellula. It's Latin, and it means all cells arise from pre-existing cells. That was it. The final clue. Life only comes from life. Cells divide to make new cells.
And all of that history boils down to these two core principles of what we now call the cell theory. First, everything alive is made of cells. Second, all of those cells came from another cell. This simple two-part idea became the absolute bedrock of all modern biology.
Okay, so now that we've got the theory down, let's zoom in. What's actually going on inside one of these incredible little units? A great way to think about it is to picture the cell as the main arena where the action of life happens.
And the stage for this arena is the cytoplasm. Now, this isn't just empty space. It's a bustling, semi-fluid matrix where all the chemical reactions that actually define life are going down. This is what keeps the cell in that living state. And the scale we're talking about here is just mind-boggling. The smallest cells we know of, these mycoplasmas, are just 0.3 micrometers long. To put that into perspective, you'd have to line up over 3,000 of them, end to end, just to cross a single millimeter. It's unbelievably tiny. And cells aren't just one size fits all. They're incredibly diverse. You have red blood cells that are shaped like these biconcave discs, perfect for squeezing through tiny blood vessels. Then you have these long branched nerve cells, designed to send signals over huge distances. Their shape is always perfectly related to their job. Form follows function. But here's what's wild. Despite all that amazing diversity, all life on Earth is built on one of only two fundamental blueprints. This is kind of the great divide in the story of life, and it's all based on one key design feature. And that big feature is the nucleus. See, eukaryotic cells, like the ones that make us up, keep their genetic material neatly tucked away inside a membrane-bound nucleus. But prokaryotic cells, the more ancient type, just have their genetic material floating around naked in the cytoplasm. It seems like a simple difference, but it has massive implications. Let's just lay it out side by side. The nucleus, absent in prokaryotes, present in eukaryotes. What about other complex membrane-bound compartments like mitochondria? Again, absent in prokaryotes, present in eukaryotes. But notice the one thing they both have, ribosomes. These are the tiny factories that build proteins, and the fact that they both have them points to a shared ancestry, the same basic machinery of life. So let's take a closer look at the simpler of the two blueprints, the prokaryotes. Don't let simpler fool you, though. These guys are incredibly successful. They're kind of the unsung heroes of our planet. We're talking about organisms like bacteria and blue-green algae. They're usually much smaller and multiply way faster than our cells. Most have a protective cell wall, and some carry a secret weapon, plasmids. These are little extra circles of DNA that can carry genes for things like antibiotic resistance, and they can even share these plasmids with other bacteria, letting them adapt and evolve at incredible speeds. They're protected by this amazing three-layered defense system called the cell envelope. On the very outside, you've got the glycocalyx. It can be a loose slime layer or a tough capsule. Under that is the rigid cell wall, which gives the cell its shape. And finally, you have the inner plasma membrane, which acts like a selective gatekeeper, controlling exactly what comes in and what goes out. And that brings us right back to the single most important takeaway from this whole story. The cell is it. It is the fundamental unit of life. Anything less than the complete structure of a cell, well, it can't sustain an independent existence. It is the absolute minimum requirement for life. So I'll leave you with this to think about. A single bacterium has everything it needs to live on its own, to eat, to grow, to reproduce. Now, you are made of trillions of cells, each one a universe of complexity, all working together in perfect harmony. So if one cell is a life, what does that make you?